Hi guys, welcome back to the Big Sew Along. I am Ginny and I am very excited today because we have finally got around to our Diane Ericson French fold shrug. I love this pattern. It's actually one of my favorite patterns ever. I just feel like there's so much you can do with this. Let's go through the basics really fast. The pattern sizes on this is just small, medium, and large. However, it is beyond easy to adjust the size on this. So if you're smaller or larger, you really don't need to worry about it. It's very easy to alter, and when I do the tutorial here in a minute, you'll be able to see the pattern piece and you'll get what I mean. What else? Really all you need for this is your fabric and your thread. You may want other things like if you want to embellish it with patches or collages or buttons or embroidery or whatever, this is a really great piece for doing that kind of thing. Today, the one we're making today is just a really simple, basic version of this shrug. I'm showing you the lined version because I think that that is going to be helpful for the most people. Like, once you know how to put it together, you won't need to worry about, then an unlined version is going to be really easy. A lined version is a little bit more complicated just because of the sleeves, turning the sleeves. But you'll see when we get to the video. Yeah, so today's version is just this one, the one I'm wearing today. And this one, by the way, is made in two different versions of diamond textiles. Which reminds me, this fabric was not wide enough to fit my pattern piece on. So the reason that it looks like I have cuffs here and different fabric here is because I took a separate strip of this wider stripe fabric and just sewed it to the edges of my regular fabric before I cut my pattern. Now, the reason I'm telling you that is because A, so you don't get confused and think that I forgot to tell you how to put cuff on, but also because it's a really good way to mix up some different fabrics and patterns. As you can see, when you put it on, when you get it all together, those strips that I put, that just sewed plain strips along the edge of the fabric, they end up in different places and it creates a really cool effect. Okay. Like I said, there are about a million things you can do with this pattern. Before I go any further, I want to say Diane Ericson very, very generously offered us a coupon code. I referred to this last week. She did indeed give us a coupon code, and I'm very grateful. The coupon code for this is FFOLD, all caps. I'll put it up here, but also I will put it in the info box below this video. If you use that code on the Diane Ericson website, you will get 15% off the French fold shrug pattern between now and March 18th. That is just for this pattern, but it is for either the PDF or the paper pattern. And also, I will say that I know a lot of people really don't like PDF patterns. This pattern you will see again when we go to the tutorial here in a second. Not a lot of pages. So, I mean, if you're hesitant because you don't want to put a ton of pages together, we're talking like 8, maybe 10 pages. It's really not a lot of pages. Okay. I think that's all I'm going to say right now. I'm going to send you over to the tutorial, and then we'll come back and do a little more talking. Okay, so we only have one pattern piece here, and you're not going to be able to see the whole thing on my screen, so I'm going to move it a little bit. This one side. Other side's over here. Okay, this front edge right here, this edge right here is on a fold. All three of the other sides, so this one down here, and this one over here, you want to cut even with the edge of your pattern. So it'll be just a big square. Now you'll see at the top and the bottom, this center line right here is your shoulder seam. This edge over here is the front. front side, this is the bottom, the front edge of your shrug is going to be on the fold over here. But you'll see here, you have different cut lines for your 3/4 sleeve, for your long sleeve, and down here for a shorter version or a longer version. For this one, I'm cutting the longer version with the long sleeve, but the cutting directions are the same for all of them. So, first, you're going to leave your pattern like this, and you're going to see this line right here that says sleeve cut line. You have one here on the front piece, and you have one here on the back piece. Same thing, sleeve cut line. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to mark mine with a piece of chalk. Now you'll also see a side seam fold and a flared side seam fold edge dotted line over here. We don't need to worry about those right now. We'll deal with those later. What we do have to worry about right now is over here on the center front, where we're on the fold, is our neckline. And you have two different choices here. Cut line for option B and cut line for option A. If you use option B, you're going to have a little bit of a fold back, like almost like a little lapel. If you use version A, you're not going to have that. Today, I'm going to use version A, but again, you can use either one. And I'm just going to mark that line on my fabric. And there are two lines for all of these cutting lines. There's a solid line, that's your cutting line, and then there's a dotted line, that's a stitch line. So don't do that. We want to use the solid lines for these markings. You'll also see a little triangle line coming out here. We want to mark that as well. Okay, now we're going to move our pattern piece off. And we're going to start with the neckline. I know you guys aren't going to be able to see it, but you'll see it on yours when you start cutting. Mine is right here. I'm going to cut right here from the bottom. And I'm just going to follow that cut line. I'm going through both layers. And then I'm going to cut this diagonal line right here. And I'm just going to cut that up to meet the other one. Okay, so we're going to get rid of that. Now, the only thing is you're going to have, because this is on the fold, at the bottom here, this is still going to be attached. So just take your scissors and slice that open. Now, we're going to go over here to our arms, and we're going to cut into this stitch line right here. We're going to stop right there. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, and that's all of our cutting for this piece. So we're going to do this. We're going to do this for our main fabric and then also for our lining fabric. Once we have our piece cut out, and it's too big for you to see it all on this camera, but it's a big square with some slashes in it and this center front opening. Now this is the right side of my fabric. We're going to fold this over like this. So the right side of the back is against the right side of the front. Over here, we're going to have something that looks like this. I'm going to fold this out of the way for a second. This right here is our sleeve. So we just want to be sure that that is lined up and that cut point is even. Now we're just going to sew the sleeve edge, so just this edge, and we're going to sew right to here. It's about 1/4 of an inch past your the point where you cut. We're going to sew right along this edge with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. If you're not lining yours, you're going to want to finish that. Either way, you're going to want to press it. That's one side. The other side looks exactly the same, obviously. We're going to line that up, get this out of the way. Just like that. Now, if you are lining it, you're going to want to do the exact same thing with your lining piece. Just sew the underarm seams. Okay, I forgot to mention this before, you guys. When you, after you sew this underarm seam, you're going to want to clip right up to the point where you stop. Just right to the edge. Then, we have the right side of our jacket folded up, oops, against the right side of our lining. That's my jacket, that's my lining. My jacket is inside my lining. They're right sides together. We're going to pin all the way around the edge. You can see I've gone straight up the front, around this little triangle piece, and down. Now I'm going to go around this edge. And when we get over here, underneath our underarm, we're going to come down here, around here, and then we're going to go back up this slit. And when you get up here, when you're sewing, you're going to want that to meet right up with this underarm seam where you stopped sewing from before. And then you're going to pivot and come down this way. This way, and then continue across the back. Now the only thing is, you're going to want to leave a little opening so we can turn this right side out. I suggest doing that at the center back at the bottom, but you can put it wherever you want, really. So yeah, so we're just going to sew these right sides together all the way around the perimeter, and don't do anything with the sleeves yet. Okay, this is what we have so far. Now, in order to turn this right side out, we're going to need to do some clipping. In here, where it looks like a big M, into that corner we're going to want to clip. And then under our arms here, only be really careful because you have 3 seams converging here. And it's going to be really tight. So just make sure that you can clip in there, but don't cut any of your stitching there. And then the other thing we're going to want to do is trim off any points. Because when we turn this inside out, we want the fabric to have enough room to fold over on itself there. And at each of these corners as well. Now that we have all of our corners clipped, we are going to go back into this hole in the center back and turn this right side out. Now when you do this, your sleeves are not going to be together. They're going to be separate, like this, which is fine. We're going to deal with that in a minute. Now you have something that looks like that Indian god with all the arms. This, so just go in through your, your sleeve. Find the lining to the sleeve and pull it through. So it's like that. Do the same thing on the other side. Just go into the outside, the main sleeve, and go all the way through until you find the lining sleeve. It's pretty easy to see, and pull it through. Okay. Now, we should look kind of like that. We are going to want to go through here with our point turner and get all of these edges really straight and neat. So I'm going to do that now. This is sort of what we have so far. And we should have 4 wings, 2 on the front and 2 on the back. So now we're just going to go through this whole thing with our point turner and push out all these edges, and then we're going to give it a really good press. Okay, now we have our shrug all folded right side out and pressed. That's our lining. This is our little opening at the back. Before we do anything else, let's hem these sleeves. So an easy way to do this is I always, just like it is right here, I just put a pin in here in the center seam, in that bottom seam, and that's just to make sure I don't twist my sleeve when I turn it around. Now I'm going to go in through this hole in the bottom, and I'm going to pull my sleeve out. Just my sleeve. You don't have to turn the whole thing right side out. And you'll see they're separated, and this is where we have it pinned. It's a little confusing, but what we want to do is place our cuffs right sides together. So we're going to remove that pin. I am going to, how do I want to do this? Fold these right sides together, just like that. Keep your seams matched up. And then just continue all the way around the cuff. Now it's gonna look weird because you have one sleeve here and one sleeve here, and you're essentially putting them together like that. Okay? Now, once you have them pinned together like that, you're just going to go to the sewing machine and sew right around that cuff edge. And you're going to have to sort of move your jacket around because it's going to, you know, get in the way. You're just going to go right around that whole sleeve. And you want to do the same thing with the other sleeve. Now, we're just going to go into our armhole and fish out. We're going to go right in there to where our sleeves were sewn together and pull that out. And you should have a nicely hemmed sleeve there. You're going to need to press that. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. All right, let's turn this guy right side out. Okay, now we get to have some fun. We are going to want to sew this hole up in the back, and you can either top stitch it or you can sew it together by hand. The way the rest of this comes together is pretty easy. You have some choices here. Let's just look at one side. These two pieces get folded over. So you remember this stitching line here? That's what we're dealing with right now. So you can stitch it along here, and it doesn't have to be a straight line. It could be at an angle. It's totally up to you. Just want to play with it a little bit and see. So you would stitch it down like this, and then one side, the front side would get folded to the front, and the back side would get folded to the back. And you would edge stitch this down right here on both, on the front and the back. And then you do the same thing on the other side. Obviously, if you do it that way, your lining or the back side of your fabric, if you haven't lined your jacket, either way, that's going to show. So for this one, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to open my jacket out. I'm going to just flip this top piece under. Sort of open my jacket up. Let's get that out of the way. Gosh, it's going to be hard to show you now. Okay, so this is just getting flipped under and laid against the back. And again, you can determine the angle you want it to lay at on your own, just wherever you want it to lay. I want mine to come down a little bit like this. I hope you can see that. And then on this, I would just edge stitch this right along this edge. And you just want to be sure that you meet up here, right here at the underarm. Otherwise, you'll have a little hole there. So I'm going to have to move this pin so I can show you. You want it to meet up right here. Now, that's the back. Then for the front, this piece just gets folded over this way. And again, you can establish whatever angle you want it at. I think I want mine to be down here like that. If you fold it up like this, you'll have this little piece that hangs over. That's actually a really good place to put a button and a buttonhole if you want one. On this one, I don't think I do want one, so I'm going to have mine fold all the way down here like this. Now, you can do it the other way, too. You can put this one, you can do it this way. You can put this one down first, the back side down first. And then the front of your jacket would look like that. And you would stitch along the top of that right there. And in fact, I think that's what I'm going to do this time. And again, just make sure you get it stitched right up to your armhole so you don't have a hole there. Or your armpit so you don't have a hole there. Then on the back, you would fold this. And again, any way you like. And that looks pretty good. I think I would do it just like that. Okay, so now you have some ideas how to sew that. Sew your opening shut first. And then go ahead and do your folds however you want. Then you have this last piece to deal with. You can leave it as is. You can fold it down this way and stitch it down, or you can fold it down this way and have it be a detail at the back. And I am going to fold mine this way this time, so it sits towards the back. And I'm just going to edge stitch this. Just like that. So on this one, we would edge stitch along here and then edge stitch along here. Again, just be sure when you lay this flat, when you lay this down, that this is going to lay really flat. You might want to pin it first and double check that you're not getting any puckering or anything first. Okay, so I hope that that was clear enough. I feel like this shrug is a super easy thing to make and a little bit less easy to describe on a camera when it's over your head and you can't get a picture of the whole thing. Anyways, I hope that was clear enough. It's as I said, it is not a hard garment to make, and once you know how to make it with a lining, doing it another way is super easy. This pattern does include several options for ways to finish your shrug, including different edge finishes. Binding is an option, serging is an option, leaving them raw is an option. I'm trying to think. Oh, and rolled, just rolled edges. So she describes those, she gives you a list of ideas of ways to do it in the pattern itself. Not detailed descriptions on how to bind a hem or anything like that, but just a variety of ways you can finish the edges on this jacket. I'm going to show you a picture here. This is the first one I made, and it is a size, I used a small for this one. And I just sewed it up as is. I didn't change anything about it. I think on that one, I left this a slit right here in the arms. But that's because I sewed that one together a little wacky. So I just left it. I actually really love that one, and I wear it a lot. That one is 2 different types of linen, just so you know. Okay, the one we made today, this one that I'm wearing today, is a medium. And for this one, I'm going to show you some pictures here. I ended up putting like a couple of tucks in the back. Just like pleats. To take in just a little width in the center, in the back, to keep it from flaring too much. Now, if you have a really drapey fabric, I think flaring is really cool. And also, it could be really cool even in a stiff fabric. In this one, I wanted to put the darts in, so I did. Also, Diane gives you some other ideas for taking in volume in the back, in the pattern, and they're very cool ideas. I think that that's all I have to say about this in particular. However, we are going to make another French fold shrug next week, but we're going to do a variation. We're going to do a button front tunic variation, so we'll be doing the edges differently. We'll be making a facing for the front, and we'll be sewing our wings back in a different way, hopefully. I think. Alright guys, I think that is it for this week. As I said, we'll be back next week sewing a different version of this, so if you have questions about the basic putting together of this shrug, leave them for me in the comments below and I can answer them in our video next week. Aside from that, I will be back tomorrow for Friday Sews, when I will be discussing a little more Diane Ericson. And also, I think Lois Ericson. I have to check. Anyways, I hope to see you guys then. Have a great one.